This episode is sponsored by SKS Luxury Appliances. If you've spent time around Signature Kitchen Suite, one thing designers notice right away is the technology. The interface feels familiar and intuitive because it's the same engineering that comes from LG, the company that produces the systems used in many of the luxury vehicles people drive today. Clients recognize it instantly and know how to navigate it, but SKS is also investing in designers through their Designer Rewards program and by sponsoring IDC. If you're specifying kitchens for serious cooks, give SKS a look. Learn more at sksappliances.com. SKS, built for people who truly love cooking. I'm Laurie, and this is To The Trade for Interior Design Community, and I have Nile with me. Hi, Nile.
Hi.
How's your summer been going?
Good. How about yours?
Busy. I just was at the beach for 4th of July at like the Hampton Beach area.
Nice.
Which, of course, they had a shooting the next day, but my friend my cousin Emily, you know Emily. Emily has a beach house there, and so we did a picnic. But there were horseflies there, like crazy. I was
really?
Yes, I got bit like 3 times.
I used to go, I think I told you, I used to go to Hampton Beach all the time and when I was younger. We stayed on Q Street, I think it was. But
yeah,
I don't think I ever experienced horseflies. I actually never experienced a horsefly until I went to Mexico. So that's weird.
I'm not happy. I literally was like, I might have to go home. I am getting bit.
It's painful. It's bad.
It hurts.
Yeah, it does a lot.
Yeah, but we have a special guest today, and I just told you for the first time, but I'll tell our audience. Tara Kelley. Tara and I went to high school together. So how crazy is that worlds are colliding? But Tara opened up a bookkeeping business a few years ago. And as we know, bookkeeping is such a pain point in the interior design industry that I was like, I think I can introduce some people who actually need your services. And Tara has now been working with some designers and doing such a great job. So I just wanted the audience to get to know her, and I know it, and just talk about the general problems that we see all the time in the bookkeeping and accounting world for interior designer. But Tara, just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah. Hi, Laurie. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. So I essentially have been a bookkeeper my whole adult life. I fell into it as a summer job in college and I'm good at it. So I kept up with it.
Which honestly, I mean, I could totally see it even from high school. You were such a great student, always so great. So I absolutely see it.
Yeah, no, it's honestly, it's about being consistent, right? So, and I'm the most consistent person I know. So it comes naturally to me. I wrapped up a decades-long career in finance for an IT company and decided that I wanted to hang my own shingle. So I started my own bookkeeping firm so I can I want to help. I want to help small businesses, have that clarity around their finances and their financials so that they can make good business decisions.
Oh.
Small business owners didn't go into business to run QuickBooks. They went into, and in this case, like interior designers, because they wanted to, create and design and make things beautiful. And I take the stress of the bookkeeping off their plate so that they could focus on what they started their business to do.
That is music to my ears because I know that that's so accurate. I mean, Nile, how long do you think it took you to really get a firm, from the moment you started your business further on, to feel like you had a firm handle on your finances?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm still trying to get a firm handle. I think, and I can't speak for all designers, I think because it's not our forte, right? So I think if you're trying to do it yourself, you will, I hate to say this to be a Debbie Downer, you will never really get a firm handle on it because it's not your zone of genius. It's not your lane of expertise, right? But I think one of the things that we were talking about offline beforehand, I think, for me, and I know several other designers who have had such a bad experience in the past with multiple bookkeepers or multiple accounts, you get nervous. And so you sort of, I'm like, well, I'm going to try to figure this out myself. But it's a double-edged sword because it's like, I don't know, am I doing this right? Am I not doing this right? So yeah, to answer your question, I don't think you ever get a firm handle on it if you're doing it yourself. I don't. I
Well,
really
our
do.
industry is particularly tough, Tara, because it's, about 80% women and the other 20% are LGBTQ men. So I feel like there's already a lot of pressure for the design companies that I know to run profitable businesses because they're living in a world where, it's a luxury service, number one. So it's not necessarily a necessity, although I think it is.
Mhm.
It is, the community that is in a very misogynistic world because everyone else on the job site is a man and thinks their point of view is the way to go. And it's a very complicated and stressful job where there's literally thousands of moving parts and people and everything to manage and the emotion of the client on top of it. And so the last thing an interior designer wants to do at the end of the night is sit down and look at a column of numbers and see if they're making a living or not. That's the last, because it's almost too scary, right?
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
almost too frightening to know the answer to that. And yet we have, we as a community, I poll all the time. It's part of what we do. And we know there are some real problems. We know that there are designers who don't have retirement savings or are not properly insured or do not have a really firm hold on where they're making their money. Like, which products make me the most money? Which
Mhm.
service do I have that makes the most money? Where should I invest more time or not invest the time? And, a great bookkeeper can kind of give you, hope to be able to solve some of those issues for your own self, and have some sort of future longevity plans for you, right? I mean, isn't that part of like what you're looking at and saying, okay, this is where you can go. This is what you can do. And as I'd love for more designers to use specific bookkeepers because then those bookkeepers would have a real handle, just like what we do for Wendy the attorney and
Mhm.
sending so many designers. Because once you've looked at hundreds of contracts that are interior designer contracts, you just have a more educated view of what should be in a contract because you're seeing all those different scenarios. And I would think the same thing applies for bookkeeping, right?
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. So having a niche or a specialty is helpful because to your point, like I've gained the knowledge to know what to look for, to know, if a particular gross margin percentage is good or maybe a little lagging in the industry. Expenses, as far as are you spending too much on your advertising and marketing, or maybe you could afford to spend a little bit more on your advertising and marketing. It's those little details because I mean, yes, I keep everything organized and in the accounting software as they should be. I really dig into the reports, the profit and loss, the balance sheet. I want to make sure things are not only organized and accurate, but to also understand and help my client understand those numbers. Because the more they understand, the better they feel about things, the easier they can make decisions. Should I hire another designer to join my team? Can I afford that? It's those little bits and pieces that I really pay attention to again help people make good decisions.
I mean, I just love that. I can't even tell you how much I love to hear that because it solves such a major issue. I mean, we get those questions every day, and anyone who is answering it really doesn't have a full look on what that designer is really doing. I got a question of the day today. It's a little bit off topic, but it's similar. And it's a person asking if they should hire a PR agency. And I looked at their Instagram, just briefly looking at it and I was like, oh my gosh, their Instagram needs work. Like, don't hire a PR agency before you've done the basics with your website and your Instagram so that it looks like it's attracting the right client. Because if you've paid a lot of money to get people to you and then they look at you and they're confused, it's pointless to spend that money. And I think,
Mhm.
having someone who's able to give you a more financial look at what you're doing before you do it is crucial. Like, even like knowing what parts you can, Nile, what do you think? Do you know, or do you think you've talked to designers so much? Do you think you have an idea of, in talking to designers, if most of them know what products they make the most money on in their projects? Like which category of products? Like I make more on case goods, or I make more on tile, or my profit drivers in my project are these things, because there's always like high,
Yeah.
medium, low. I feel
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
appliances designers typically don't make a whole
Don't
lot on,
make any.
don't
Yeah.
make anything on appliances,
Yeah. I
but
think
they
it's,
do
I
on
think,
cabinetry, tile,
and
lighting.
honestly, that's a back and forth thing too. I think it's like half and half because I think I think more of us know what we don't make money on, right? Like we pay a lot of attention to that. Like I'm not going to make any money on appliances, like you said, and like certain cabinet lines, I'm not going to make any money on that. But I think, it's probably about half. Like some designers really know, like, okay, window treatments, that's a standard. Everybody knows they're going to make money on window treatments. But then there are some designers I've talked to that are really like, I make money on case goods, and I make money on case goods with this vendor, this vendor, this vendor, and this vendor. I don't make money on case goods with these guys. I have not that dialed in. I just know what I like to use, per
Do
project.
you in your bookkeeping generalize like what kind of product it is so that they know what, like if it's case goods are like cabinets, like our like end tables, things like
Yeah.
that, versus
Oh, you have to, because it's categorized.
it's categorized in QuickBooks?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you can set it up that way, like
Yeah.
it's like cost of goods or something like that. But then
Sold, yeah.
you can break it down even more. In my little OCD mind, I do that.
What are your favorite reports, Tara? Like what are the things that you're telling designers to pay attention to?
Honestly, the monthly P&L. So,
Okay.
and I do it for all my clients, designers, consultants, you name it. So I start with the beginning of their fiscal year, which for most people is January, and I run a monthly P&L for them, and it shows them each month and across the top, and it's the column numbers down, because then you get a really good view of month over month. Okay, so I had this much in revenue in January, I had this much in revenue in May. And then you look at your cost of goods sold or your expenses, and you can just see, your trends. You can see which months are better than other months. And for me specifically, it also gives me a good look into, hey, I noticed that your rent just doubled from, since the last 6 months. What changed?
Right.
Because, it could be an error. It could be their rent doubled,
Right. Sure.
but honestly, this is my go-to. My favorite report is the monthly P&L.
Okay. And do you think that the designers you're working with, are they getting a handle? And I mean, you don't have to say anything specific, but are they getting a handle on what to look for in the P&L? I mean, I did do a poll, which I know you'd be probably disappointed with our community, but we did do a poll that said, do you look at your P&L monthly? And the answers were yes, no, what's a P&L? And unfortunately, the winner was
What's it?
Honestly, I'm not surprised by this because I find that a lot of the design software, it doesn't, the financial aspect of it doesn't work in that way. It doesn't have traditional financials, the traditional reports. So me coming from, just for-profit business industry, like that's where I always lived, the profit and loss, the balance sheet. But I'm learning with the design community that the software that they've been using historically just doesn't present it in the same way. And so they don't have the knowledge. So when they say what's a P&L, I'm honestly not surprised by that.
Yeah.
I put together a monthly financial report package for all of my clients and I send it out, and I will highlight a couple of, anything that I noticed, good and or bad. And I email it out to them and I say, we'll discuss this on your next meeting, and some like to review them. Others are like, oh, I looked and everything looks fine. Whether or not they really did, I don't know. And I'm not going to police that,
Yeah.
that's their prerogative to review the reports or not.
Sure. Sure.
But yeah, I do find that that's part of the issue is that with the financial parts of these software programs, they just don't present the information in my opinion, in an incredibly valuable way.
Right, right. And I think that that's what has made designers struggle for so long. And, there are real issues around that. There, like you mentioned earlier, whether or not you should take on an expense of hiring someone, whether or not you should take on an expense of doing more marketing, or there's real clarity in business decisions if you know what your numbers really are, and also like how you navigate clients. Like if you're not making enough money on appliances and you're doing a whole lot of work on appliances, like your clients are calling you on appliances, you're figuring out to 1/16 of an inch how the cabinetry should work, and you're spending a tremendous amount of time on appliances, which I know designers do all the time. Maybe you need to figure out, like, how can I make money on that? Because I shouldn't be spending all of this time on something I'm not making any profit on. And I have to figure out how to present that to my clients so that I'm not losing doing the thing that they're asking me to do, because that's not fair to me as a business owner. And sometimes I feel like if we knew that, if we had this like bright light shining on our finances, we'd be able to logically go back to the clients and with, you know, 10 toes deep down, like say, I need to make money on this. I'm sorry. Like I can't spend 30 hours working on how your flow of your appliances are going to work so that you're having the best workspace and then still make no money on appliances. So I don't, I will send you to the best possible appliances. I've gone to their factories. I know the places to go, but I charge you a 20% on all the appliances that you can outside of it. I do have designers who do 35% on appliances. I know that sounds crazy to all of you listening because none of you have made money on appliances, but I have designers who do that as a separate thing. Like you can go get whatever you want to get. After you buy it, I will be charging you 30% because I had to do all this other work. And it's a hard thing to sell. I'm not saying it's not. It really is hard to sell to the client because they're like, why am I paying you more? I'm going and buying this directly. But it's all these, you have to say, like, it's all these things I do. Like
Hmm.
I spend 30 hours
Yeah.
researching the right appliances and the workflow in which she used them so that you're not coming into your space and not using that properly. And part of that's in the design fee, but part of that has to be made up in product because I didn't charge you for every moment of my thought of how I could make that work for you, and how we were best using the space. I mean, that takes a tremendous amount of time, and so my business has to survive with product and time and design time, and that's how I make a living. So, but it's like getting clarity on the numbers gives you the empowerment to do that, I think. Don't you think?
Yeah, it gives people a well-educated place to start.
Right.
And yeah, they can. It just it all having a clean set of books just makes all of the financial decisions that much easier. It
Yes,
takes so much stress away.
it does. It does. So the designers you're working with now, do you find that in the process you're educating them along the way about how to look at the numbers? Is that part of what you're doing?
Yes. So with all my clients, I have a recurring scheduled meeting set up with them, whether it's weekly, biweekly, monthly, quarterly. And I do. I sit and we chat about things. I ask them how business is going, how their projects are doing. I ask, do you want to review the recent set of financial reports, which typically they do. But and they will. Once I start the discussion, then all of a sudden they realize they have questions.
Sure.
And it is. And it's all just about educating along the way, which is, and honestly, it's one of the things that I really appreciate doing because the more knowledge people have, the more power they have.
Oh,
Knowledge is power. So if
absolutely.
you understand what report you're looking at, I've done my job.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I was really excited because I knew you personally and I knew that, we hadn't really spoken, but I knew that I knew who you were as a person and I knew you were responsible and the type of person that would take care of my world, and I don't take it easy lightly when I recommend anyone because my name becomes attached to that person's business. But I knew who you were and I knew that you would do a great job. And, just in seeing that that's what has come to fruition over the few years that you've been working with designers is so exciting for me. And I am just so grateful that you did it and that you're taking on these businesses because they really do need that kind of advice and the tutorials along with it. Like I want them to feel, if they feel like you just said knowledge is power, and that nothing is truer than that. They really do make so many decisions in the dark based on gut. Like gut instinct tells me I should hire someone, or I've heard from some other designer that this is what will make me money and I'll do that. And so many of these decisions are, emotional decisions and pressure decisions. And, is this the right financial move? You know, I'll give you an example that I think is interesting is that I get a lot of designers who do show houses. And show house is like a house that if you don't know, it's a house that someone loans a group of designers and they get sponsored deals from different brands sometimes, but designers do spend a lot of money on show houses their own self. They bring every favor from every contractor and tile guy and painter to like they cash in every favor to get their room to be beautiful. And then editors are invited in the opening and it's like major, magazines and now there used to be very few show houses, but now there are a lot more show houses. And then there are things that they can invest in on top of that. Like maybe there's some special advertising that the show house is doing that they can participate in and spend more money on. And one of the things that always is curious to me is how much of that is your overall marketing budget. Like that's a huge investment. If you're like, for instance, I'm probably going to shock you, but to do a major show house or a designer who has their own book, like they've invested in a book, those are typically, I've had, based on everything people we've interviewed who are working in the editorial world or work on show houses are about $100,000 for that designer to invest in that. And so sometimes it pays off in big ways. Like they get big clients from it. I mean, it's not always like it was a wash and they didn't get, sometimes it does put them in a different stratosphere and gives them different types of clients coming through the door, which is what the designers are trying to do. They know that that's what they want to do. But, and sometimes it's an emotional goal too. It's like it's considered a milestone because they've seen other designers do it. And so there's an emotional component to that decision. But I would really love designers to have more clarity on finances and certainly like how much of that is your total marketing dollars for the year or for 5 years or 10 years of expenses that you would be spending on, getting your website to have local SEO or, making sure you have someone helping you with your content for videos. Maybe they're doing editing for you or, you're getting your Instagram better or your Google My Business profile, your good business profile to have reviews or the things, the general things that are just like internet savvy free marketing to some extent. I don't know. It's just always kind of like concerns me because it's never really taken a place where I don't ever feel like that decision is coming from, is this the right financial decision for me and my business? I always think it's very motivated by other emotional factors that are in there too. Have you come across that yet? Are you
I haven't.
aware of it?
No, I've not had any designers yet that have done any like show houses or items
Yeah.
like that you speak of. I do have one that she purchases, and it's a lot of small things, but they add up for staging inventory.
Yeah. And
So
that
far, it's
styling
been kept.
also for photography at the end of the project and,
Yes.
things like that. I've been on photo shoots for designers and their SUV is loaded to the max with stuff to make it look like a home, in the right stylish way when they do photography. Sure. So sure.
Yeah, precisely. And to your point, if they're not paying attention to how much they're spending, so it's a small thing here, it's a couple small things there. Those all add up. And if you're not paying, good attention to that or nobody's paying attention to that, then it can get out of control. And the next thing you know, you have a negative month.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are things that I do pay attention to. Like,
Yeah.
hey, I noticed, and this is throughout the month. This is, before I even do the month end close. Like if, because I'm posting transactions every week and they're, uploading their receipts. So I'm seeing what they're buying. And if, a week, second week of the month, and it looks like, hey, I notice you're spending a lot here, are you sure that this is what you want to do
Yeah.
essentially?
Now, if you're looking at their P&L, I'm just going to break it down. Like, how do you separate it out with, revenue, cost of goods sold, all of those factors, and then like how much they're spending on marketing, how much they're spending on, you know, aspects of their business. You're filing that all in folders. Are you seeing any averages about, like what profits a designer could expect, or is it just
No,
all
I
very
mean
different?
every client is different. Every client has their own market, if you will. Some are doing office spaces, some are doing homes. It's all a little bit different. So I have
Right.
not actually seen any real trends in the P&L, but I will say, the profit and loss can be as granular as anybody wants it. Like to Nile's point, you can have however many categories of revenue that you want. So you have your design services, then you can have,
Product.
cabinets,
Yeah.
products,
Yeah. I
window
really
treatment.
like the 4 buckets, which are design services, project management. I like procurement and installation, and then product too. So like really 5 buckets, and then the product is separated by the type of product. So where it's, bedding, soft goods, whether it's furniture, whether it's, in furniture, it's like soft, upholstered furniture versus, hard furniture. And then all of those little granular things, because I just think designers they're very visual learners. They really, I mean, every designer I've ever met has been a visual learner. And to be able to say, even a pie chart that says your most amount of profit is coming from these categories, then I think that would give them a lot of clarity on what they should be, talking, how they can also increase the categories that aren't so great. How do I increase my profit? How do I find better vendors? How do I make, those like granular decisions we just talked about, but also like overall, what am I selling? What do I need to increase selling? Oh, I let that go on the last project because I didn't really push the upholstery. I let them buy it at Restoration Hardware or whatever, but that's my biggest profit margin. So I lost a huge part on that job, and I didn't know that that was my huge profit margin product. So things like that give them clarity so that they know what to fight for and what to let go. Sometimes that's the battle with the clients. It's like sometimes like I don't know what to fight for and how to, if they're taking away every bit of my profit, but also spending the most time on them, overall my margins might be bad. Overall my gross profit might be bad. So I think that's where we fall apart, is like not knowing, no visual idea of where the profits are. And then before we know it, we're having tough months. So I love that's part of it. And I will say, like, make it as visual as possible for the designers to really understand it, because they need to. They need to be able to, and that gives them the ability to really sell better to their clients too, so that the clients understand, I'm a business. I'm in this to make money, and just like you're in your business to make money, and I can't give this away. And I mean, you're doing bookkeeping. You can't give away part of the analyzing these accounts, because it takes you time. Yeah. So I love that you're doing that. That's so great. And I'd love to see, I think as a design firm, we should be looking at businesses that are supportive of our business and really supporting those businesses that Like that's why I recommend Wendy Estella for contracts so often, because she does so many of them. Her contracts are going to be better because of that. And the same thing works for bookkeeping, because the more we give work to specific people in specific categories, the more educated they become about our industry. And then we get better from it. We actually, if they see averages we don't have eyeballs on, other people's businesses and how things should be run efficiently, and they see, oh, this has become a profit center for some of my clients and it's really working, that can be beneficial to all of us. So
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, just like life, right? It's all in a circle.
yeah.
And if we all, support and help each other, then we all get better.
Yeah, and I think we need this so badly. It's getting, whenever I ask a financial question of the community, almost always it's first of all shared a million times, and really people are desperate for it. They really need, a handle on the finances, because it's so complicated and they just don't know how to do it. It's just so frustrating. Niall, what are your pain points when do you look at your P&L monthly?
It's all a pain point for me, to be
It's
honest with
all a
you.
pain point.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
even
all
talking about this is stressful,
all of it.
you
Yeah,
know?
it all gives you like, what is it? I always say it wrong, angina, agita, whatever. It all gives you like, because I feel like, it's not, like you said before, it's nothing that we've learned. Like, we don't learn it in school, or not, it's not our zone of genius. But then also too, I think knowing your numbers is the thing that forces everything else to sort of step up, right? So like, if hey, I'm not making money in this area and I'm not making money in this area, that means you've got to show up a different way everywhere in your business, right? You can sort of fake it with other things, like, oh, they don't really like the design presentation. Let me sort of tweak this. I don't have to really change everything. I can just sort of change how I present this, or I can sort of change the style of the rendering, or but when your numbers aren't where they're supposed to be and you say, oh, I'm not making money on this, and it's a direct result of me not, standing my ground and saying, I need to make money on this, or I have to charge for this, I have to show up a totally different way. And I think that's a whole other conversation, right? But I think for a lot of us, that is where the fear comes from, because it's like, my numbers aren't right, and now in order to get my numbers right, I got to show up as a different person. You've got to be a different person, and you've got to be that. One of my coaches used to say, you got to show up as that shrewd business person that can really, kick ass and take names, for lack of a
Yeah.
better term,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, showing up as that person makes you more like, I think people are attracted to that. I think,
Oh, it's totally beneficial.
yeah,
It's like the gym, right? It's like, you hate going, you dread going, but
yeah,
after you're done, you feel amazing, right? So that's the thing. It's just getting there, right? And
yeah,
doing the hard work at the gym. That's what it is. And you know that if you're gonna go, you've got to show up and you've got to put out the effort to get through the exercise. And I think that's what it is. Like, if I'm gonna look at my numbers, then I'm gonna have to put out the effort to do the work. But once I've done the work and it's all done, on the other side of it, it feels amazing, right? It's
yeah,
amazing for everybody. But it's just
yeah.
that it's sort of that thing when you think about, like, oh, I don't want to take it on. You know what I mean?
How has it been on that front, Tara, getting good numbers from, like, getting the good records from the designers? Has that been a challenge?
Shaking her head
Because
like,
I'm like,
I
I've got
don't
it in.
get good numbers. Honestly, all of my my recurring monthly clients, they came to me with a mess. And so pretty much all of my engagements start with a cleanup project.
so
Right.
can I just stop you there? That is something that I think needs to be shared more often, like what you just said, because I think a lot of us don't engage or don't move forward because we feel like we're the only ones living in a mess. And so we don't say it. We don't share it. I've been in rooms where, like, somebody will say it and then everybody will be like, oh my God, me too. And all of a sudden, everybody feels so much better because you think you're the only person holding on to that secret. And so when we hear somebody like you who has it together and knows how to help us get it together, say, well, no, 90% of who came to me came with a mess. It's like, oh, okay, so then I can come to you with my mess and you can help me too. Because I think that's what holds a lot of people back, the fear of exposing their mess, and that they're the only one with the mess.
It's almost like the hoarder who doesn't want anyone to
Yes.
come over.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
And
Exactly.
that's precisely it. I mean, I've had calls with potential clients so I always like to review a person's QuickBooks company file before I present them with an agreement, because I can get a handle on how much cleanup needs to be done, what kind of effort it's going to take on a monthly basis. And I've had several potential clients hesitate and a few not even want to give me access because they're like, "Well, I'm embarrassed. I don't want you to see how messy it is." But
Yeah.
that's okay, because to me,
Or they
that's
just
like
don't have it at all. That's the thing. They haven't.
right.
I mean, I know there are designers right now that are feeling even worse because they don't even have, they aren't doing it at all. They're kind of
Yes.
just flying by the seat of their pants with monthly expenses and doing the best they can. And rightly, like I said, just told you in the beginning, 80% women. So they're juggling sometimes being a new mom or going through something at home where their parents are ill or like shit happens, like life happens for designers. I feel like we forget that they're human beings who are struggling with a million things, their business and top of their personal life. And so there are people who have not done it correctly, just jumped in and gotten, business, and they don't have an LLC yet and they don't have a license, and maybe they're scared of that commitment or whatever that might look like.
Hmm.
And if fear is I feel like fear is a paralyzer. It just
Hmm.
always makes people go, I can't let anybody see this. I can't let anybody know this. It's why, you have these hoarders who like literally, I mean, it's a mental illness and part of it, because they just are so afraid of it. And they don't want to they don't want light on it. Maybe they don't want to know because they're afraid of what that might tell them, you know?
Well,
Yeah.
and I think naturally as humans, we don't want to be judged by somebody else, and if opening up your books and it's a mess could bring potential judgment, that
Yeah.
Hmm.
is that causes a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety. Me personally, I don't judge, right? Like
No.
I'm gonna look in there and I'm gonna see what needs to be fixed, what needs to be cleaned up,
Yeah.
what needs to be caught up, and then just do it and get everything straight and flowing smoothly. And
Yeah.
I have seen
I knew
such
you could be
relief.
that way. I recommended you, and you're trustworthy. I mean, we never have spoken about any of the clients you have, So I don't know who of the design community is working with you. You're trustworthy. You keep counsel. You are steady as a rock. Like those are the things and you understand, you care, and you're understanding and trying to get them to give you information, but you're gentle about it. It's like when you have neglected your teeth for a really long time and you go to the dentist, you want somebody who's not going to be like,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
yeah. So I love that. I think that's so comforting that you're out there trying to help our community and in ways that will not scare them, will not, make them feel inadequate, or, they can come to you with as much as like, I don't even have books yet. I
No, and I've had clients come to me with spreadsheets,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
I get
Where's
them
my bank
all
account?
set up.
I don't know, that kind of thing. So, I mean, I love that it allows people of all, walks to start. And I really think honestly, I think about the designers who asked me today about hiring a PR agency. The very first person you want to hire is someone who's going to help you with financial stuff. Is as
Yep.
much as unsexy as that might be,
Yep.
that's the first person. I'd like you to spend a little bit more time on your marketing, your physical time
Yep.
before you hire someone to bring in the clients. I know that that seems attractive, but you really should get your house in order
Yep.
before you invite company.
Yep.
And so like that's what I want you to do is go and interview great bookkeepers like Tara and find out like what it is to get everything set up so that you're doing things the way you need to be doing so you have a profitable business and hopefully retirement at the end of this career. You're making smart decisions with your finances so that you don't end up with nothing at the end. Like those are the things as a community leader I want to see so that I can set my community up for success, so they have what they need to be making decisions the smartest way that they can. So I love that you're doing that. What are some of the things you think that we can do better as an industry? I mean, you don't have a huge general view, but what do you think what would you tell a young designer who's just now starting to do it and really getting profitable, but they're like, I have no clarity on my books. I don't really know.
First thing I would recommend is number one, keep your business and personal finances separate. I've seen a lot of commingling, and it takes a little bit to break that apart, because you really need your business expenses, your business everything to be separate from your personal. Other thing I would recommend to anybody, whether they're just starting out or they're a seasoned designer or whomever they are, reconcile your statements. Okay. I have seen so many sets of books where I said, "Oh, are your accounts reconciled? Your bank accounts, your credit card accounts?" And they say, "Oh, yes, yes, everything is." And then I look in and nothing has been reconciled inside the software. Count reconciliations is what I consider the first line of defense. If you're doing them every month, you're catching your mistakes, your errors in month, and you can correct them versus not doing them and they carry through month after month. And the next thing you know, you have 18 months of bad financials, or just bad, numbers, because you have duplicate income or duplicate expenses, and that can actually cause a big, tax liability. You may be paying too much in taxes. You may have not paid enough in taxes.
Sure.
So those are my two like first bits of advice to anybody, is keep your business and personal separate, and to make sure you are reconciling your accounts on a monthly basis.
Well, I wonder if they are, having better view of their finances. Do you think that when I think about like your personal and your business expenses, I feel like it's a bigger problem than what I think you might think it's an easy thing, but I think designers don't know how to do that either. Like, what is I might, uh, you know, go out to dinner with my client and take them out to dinner. Is that a personal expense? Is that a business expense? I might buy a new phone and I'm using it to call my mom, but I'm also mostly using it for business. Is that a business expense? Like there's a lot of question, I think, for designers about what those business expenses are.
Yeah, and also too, I find especially with any business that's first starting out, you're using your personal funds essentially to start up your business, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where the problem starts,
Yeah.
because you know, all right, so I have $10,000 in my savings account that I can use to start my business, and that money never gets accounted for properly. So it's not shown as an owner investment. It's just kind of commingled in. And then,
Added to monthly too, compounded monthly, because next month
yes,
you might be like, "Oh, I use my savings, but I got some money that should be profit, but I'm going to put that back into the business too." And just we never really, it never really untangles.
exactly, exactly. So that's why I always say, and especially for anybody who's even thinking of starting a business, just keep your finances separate. Do everything that you can. Yes, there are obviously going to be times where, oh shoot, I used my business credit card to, buy groceries.
Right.
It happens. Those
Yeah.
things can be, they can be corrected in the accounting software. It's not a big deal, but having that be the exception, not the rule, is really where we want to get to.
Yeah, yeah. Can you tell me, are there some things that we're overlooking as possible business expenses? I know designers are in their car all the time. Are there expenses we're overlooking that are business expenses for designers?
not that I have seen so far. Like as far as auto expenses, everybody seems to be, spot on with that. As far as things that can be written off, that actually kind of falls more to the accountants when they prepare the
Sure.
tax returns, right? Because I keep the books in order. I make sure everything is categorized and reconciled and everything is proper to then hand that off to the accountant at the end of the year.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And then they're the ones who can say, okay, so you used a room in your house as your home office. We can use this percentage to write off, So I do always recommend to my clients for any expenses that they pay. So say you work out of your home,
Yeah.
which a lot of us do now.
Sure.
Keep a spreadsheet on the side just of your monthly expenses. What if you have a rent, if you have mortgage, what you pay for your electric bill, your gas bill, those types of things, because those are the items that that you as the business owner are gonna provide to your accountant so that they can do the write-offs on your tax returns.
Yeah. And sometimes there has to be a document attached to that depending on, like I know people who have literally written lease agreements for the space in their house to their business. Like you can lease this space for X dollars per month. I know people who have, done that with cars, like with all of the business expenses. And then like designers do attend a lot of trade events. So those are things that you should be making sure those are part of your education. They have to get educated in design. They get a lot of they attend a lot of panel discussions and CEUs and events so that they can maintain education about product, typically. So those are all, expenses that you should be factoring in. And then like looking at, even should you go? Should you go to the next trade show? Can you afford it based on your marketing dollars or your education dollars? If you have that history, you're able to get clarity on those financial decisions, which are they are financial decisions. And it's so fun to go to High Point. High Point is our like fashion week for furniture, and it's a lot of fun. Nile and I go and we speak on panels, and there's like thousands of designers there, and it is a lot of fun to be there
Mhm.
because there's cocktail parties. There's like, we go to places that they have puppies that we can just hold for fun. Like it's just insane. But you're also learning and having business meetings, and it's not just a big party the entire time. You're really getting educated about what is happening in the marketplace. But there's a lot of them. There's High Point, there's Design Edge, which I run their conference. There is, I Throw Rock, there's a design event. So it's
Yeah.
like figuring out the time investment, figuring out where, should I do this thing? Do I have time to take it off to do, because it's like even if it's free, even if you got sponsored to go and it's free, it still costs you because you're not working.
And
Yeah.
also, I wonder too, if you're going, like, say, if you're going to High Point, if you're going for really for work, like for a client, like you're like, I have to go to High Point. I've got a project and I need to look at product, right? And so figuring out, like, I wonder, figuring out how to make that make sense in terms of, because then it's not marketing dollars and it's really on the client, right? Because you're going for them. So,
Yeah.
figuring that out, right? Because I know that's a big thing for us saying to the client, well, I'm actually going for you. And so let's have a conversation about that so that that sort of thing.
Yeah, financially, like,
Yeah.
so that it's not costing you, the designer, money to go buy product for the client because you're on the clock. It's essentially on the clock.
Yep.
Are you seeing a difference between, we're getting out of time, but I really want to know this. Are you seeing a difference between like, there are so many different models. The three that are most popular in our world are hourly, designers charging hourly for their
Yeah.
time, just designers charging flat fee based on project, or even square footage fee. Those are the three that we get the most. And then of course there are combinations. So designers have a flat fee, but it's very detailed scope. And then anything that goes outside of the flat fee, it's extra dollars per month or per hour. So I've seen numerous different ways to do it. And when we would talk to someone else who does a number of different accounting for designers, they said flat fee is almost always the most profitable. But there are designers who literally just don't have it in them to manage, writing it down. So they would lose money because they would literally not be able to physically write it down or clock in or clock out so that they know what their hours are.
Yeah. So I have encountered, to your point, all three of those.
Sure.
More prevalent is the project price or the hourly price.
Right.
Or, that combination where, here's your project scope, here's the price. If things are added or the project scope changes, this will be the hourly, price that we'll have to charge you. I find that, and it's tough, and honestly, it's tough for me as a bookkeeper because I always do things on on flat. I call it flat value pricing, right? So I
Right.
charge a monthly flat fee to from my recurring clients based on the amount of effort that I think is going to take me every month.
Sure.
So for me, that works out well because then I'm not tracking my time in quarter-hour increments, which
Right.
tend to just that in itself takes time,
Hard.
right?
Hard to do it. I don't know
And
how
so
lawyers do it.
designers, if they're not inclined to really track their time and to do the billable hours, then they are much better doing a project price.
Right.
To your point, you still have to keep track internally, how much time you're spending to know if your project was profitable or if it wasn't.
We say it
So
all the
there is,
time. It's so
there is
hard.
that level of how much effort really you want to put into tracking your time. And that's really going to depend on how profitable you are with billing for your services.
The hardest part, I think, is designers are thinkers. They really spend a lot of time, more time than most people would really, number one, want to pay for.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
number two, most people would really even know. I
Yeah.
mean, they're thinking about that space plan like in the shower while they're driving their kids to school. They're like, oh, I can't. That's not going to work because that being there is going to cause traffic jam every day when they're trying to get coffee. Okay, I got to rework that kitchen. That's not going to work. And they constantly are doing that. We're working in their head 1,000 times before they actually like present the person. And it's they can't even help themselves. Like I could say to them, I only want you dedicating this many hours to, that process, that ideation process, but they can't not do that. That's part of like in their DNA. It's not going to change. And it's a lot more hours than anybody ever bills for because they have to literally, it takes them that long to work through that, to get that light bulb moment of, okay, this is the right thing. And even then, I mean, there are external factors that change after the fact that they can't really control. So it's really hard. Like somebody might move, like a contractor might move something. I had a designer who told me like she built everything. There were hardwood floors and she built everything so that she could have these mats that were under certain cabinets that if the pipe burst or the refrigerator thing went, that it wouldn't ruin the floors. And then the plumber put the pipes into a different cabinet, and she's like, and then the cabinets went in, and she wasn't there for that part of it. And so she's like, having to have arguments with the contractor and the plumber to come back, fix that because the mats she bought were like over $1,000 and were meant to save these hardwood floors that were also thousands of dollars if anything went wrong. And, it's like all that thought process that she put into to make sure that all of these things were preventable could be tossed out the window in 2 seconds by somebody else's decision, and that kind of thing is like that's an everyday occurrence to a design firm, and it puts them in this weird adversarial role. And so, I love the idea of clarity of finances because that would maybe make the decisions easier for them to fight the battles and give them something in writing that feels black and white to be able to have those conversations and be like, look, I've spent XYZ hours and build my client for that thought process where I wanted that plumbing to come into this thing and now it's not. How am I going to reconcile that? That's a good argument for me to talk to the plumber and the contractor about, or the the cabinet installer when I want that change done. I'm like, the drawing said that, not more than just the drawing said this, but also the financial contribution that all went into that decision so that I can, have black and white numbers to fight with, those kinds of things. Yeah. I love it. I love it, Tara. Well, thank you so much. This has been so fantastic. So much clarity for our community. And we're going to make sure everyone follows you, goes to your website, and hopefully you'll get more designers coming to you because that
Yes,
benefits all of us.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I deeply appreciate your support. It
absolutely.
yeah, it
Yeah.
means a lot.
We just
Thank you.
want people we can trust, that at the
Yeah.
end of the day, that's all I
Absolutely.
want for my people is someone that is trustworthy and that will help them and not make them feel embarrassed
Yep.
because they don't have a handle on it. Because just listening, if you're listening to this now, everyone doesn't have it together. Everyone is
No.
just doing the best they can.
Yes, we're all a mess.
We're all a mess. Welcome to the mess.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Tara. And I'll make sure everyone gets all of your information so they can get right in touch with you.
Thank you, Laurie. Nice to meet you, Nile.
Nice to meet you.
This episode is brought to you by Curry & Company. Designers, you know the moment. You walk into the room and the lighting stops you in your tracks. Chances are it might be Curry. Curry & Company has built its reputation on pieces that feel sculptural, collected, and timeless, from hand-finished chandeliers to statement lamps, furniture, and accessories. Their collection is top-notch. If you haven't explored their newest introductions, take a look. Visit curryandcompany.com,